Hi, my name is Christy Hilton, and this is my presentation on Sor Juana for my World Literature 2 class. I'd like to start out by apologizing. I am not Hispanic. I did take some Spanish classes, so hopefully I won't martyr the names too badly, but I'm not Hispanic, so I'm not very good with Hispanic names. So I just like to apologize for any mispronunciations or errors in the names. Sorry. So, here we go. Sor Juana, Life and Legacy. The Baroque period lent its greatest minds to leave a legacy that continues today. One of these minds belonged to Sor Juana Ines de la Cruz. A Mexican author, Sor Juana has earned herself a reputation for her outspoken opinions. One of these opinions was solidly established in her poem, Philosophical Satire. This presentation will give a brief summary of Sor Juana's life and legacy, as well as a thorough analysis of her philosophical satire and why it sparked such social controversy. Although there is some dispute as to the exact year, Sor Juana was born on November 12th in a year between 1648 and 1651 to Pedro Manuel de Escobaje, and Isabel Ramirez. Her given name was originally Juana Ines de Escobaje y Ramirez de Santillana, although she has also been called Juana Ramirez y Escobaje, and earned the nicknames the 10th Muse and the Phoenix of Mexico. Considered a Criolla, or someone of pure or mostly pure Spanish descent born in Spanish colonies, for her Spanish and Mexican ancestry, she was the illegitimate daughter of a Spanish captain and a Criolla woman. Sor Juana was baptized in December of 1651 and described as a daughter of the church, despite her father's absence in her life. She grew up with her mother and grandfather on her grandfather's estate. Sor Juana was rumored to have hidden in the hacienda church on her grandfather's estate to read books, because reading was a crime for women in that day. She later moved to Mexico City at age 16 and studied with Leonor del Corrento, wife of the Viceroy of New Spain, who was actually Italian. When she was 17, she astounded several philosophers, theologians, poets, and jurists when asked a series of difficult questions on various subjects unprepared. She became a sensation in the viceregal court, receiving multiple proposals by the time she left in 1667, all of which she declined. After the viceregal court, Sor Juana joined the ministry of St. Joseph in 1667 as a discalced Carmelite nun. She left in 1669, however, to join a monastery of Hieronymite nuns, who had more relaxed rules. While some today may wonder at the choice to become a nun, Sor Juana joined the monastery because it was a way for her to study without interference, given that women of the time were restricted from most education. Luckily for Sor Juana, the Viceroy and Vicereine of New Spain had become her patrons. They supported and helped her publish her writings in Spain. Sor Juana quickly became a controversial figure with a large audience. She is quoted as having said, "One can perfectly well philosophize while cooking supper." It was hardly a surprise when one of her critiques, a thorough rebuke of a 40-year-old sermon, was published without Sor Juana's permission. She immediately wrote an eloquent defense. Despite this, the church forced her to relinquish her educational pursuits. After the sale of her library, experimental equipment, and other educational oddities, Sor Juana penned a document renouncing her learning and signed it, quote, "I, Sor Juana Ines de la Cruz, the worst woman in the world," end quote, with her own blood. Sor Juana died a year later from the plague in April 1695, after ministering to her sister nuns who had been sick with the same plague. She was around 46 years old. One of the hundreds of works by Sor Juana, Philosophical Satire, and one of the few to survive her renunciation of education, the poem was meant to question the very principles her society was founded upon. Sor Juana fired question after question, and finally concluded that men are simply arrogant. Quote, "For in your promise and demands, you unite devil, flesh, and world." End quote. The poem targets women's representation in Sor Juana's culture, declaring, quote, "The criticisms of men are inconsistent when they denounce in women what they themselves cause," end quote. Sor Juana was controversial in her own time, and still continues to influence social change today. For example, in her philosophical satire, Sor Juana says that, quote, "However discreet a woman is, she never wins your esteem. If she doesn't let you in, she's mean. If she lets you in, she's easy," end quote, which draws most minds to the more current issue of women's appearance. How does a woman dress to please today's society? If she wears too much, she's a prude. She wears too little, and she's promiscuous. The same analogy can be made with many different substitutes: makeup, relationships, and even hairstyles. It is for this reason that Sor Juana remains such a popular feminist author. She has an age-old argument. Why expect such low standards, then ridicule and ostracize when they're met? Her poetry brings to light an issue that has been occurring since prehistoric times. In the 17th century, when Sor Juana was learning and writing, most women were expected to become the medieval version of a housewife. They were expected to run the household, manage the servants, learn needlework, and perhaps practice a bit of the pianoforte. This is a very large contrast to today's expectations of women. In some households today, women are the sole providers, or the breadwinners. Even still, some women are ostracized for the work they undertake, or the number of sexual encounters they've had. In the 17th century, a woman who was not a virgin, often simply called impure, was no longer eligible for marriage, and would be forced to remain single forever. With such a large taint to a woman's reputation, no one with any real status could take the political and social risk of marrying her. For Sor Juana, this must have struck some chords. Quote, "Whose blame should be the greater in an ill-starred passion, she who begged for falls, or he who, fallen, begs for her?" End quote. The images Sor Juana places in the mind of her readers are both prolific and incredibly sad. A woman who gives in at last, and a man who scorns her for a choice he forced upon her. Of course, not every encounter was forced, but in the words of Sor Juana, quote, "You blame one woman for being cruel, and the next for her looseness." End quote. Sor Juana was influential in the 1600s and has remained so even today. In the 1970s, skeletal remains thought to be Sor Juana's were discovered at the convent of San Geronimo. Along with a medallion the influential and controversial woman had been often and famously wearing in paintings. Although not confirmed to be her or hers, the medallion was taken by Margarita Lopez Portillo, the sister of the 1970s President of Mexico, Jose Lopez Portillo, for safekeeping. She kept it until at a 1995 tercentennial memorial of Sor Juana's death, the Mexican government publicly asked for its return. The New York Times ran an article that sparked a series of debates about the Mexican government having too much power. Quote, "To possess power here is to possess Mexico," end quote. Sor Juana was even immortalized in the several films and plays made about her life, and her image was printed on the 200 peso bill. Perhaps in this way, Sor Juana has not only attained the knowledge and controversy to last a lifetime, but also the only kind of immortality that truly matters, a place in the heart and pockets of her people. Thank you so much for watching, and have a wonderful day. Bye.